What a great, fantastic, and beautiful morning. Before we start the AA Daily Reflection reading for today, you know I had to give you my testimonial song before I introduce the topic for today. We've learned not to mix religion and spirituality, they are different. However, through the AA program, I did find the God of my understanding. And this song was dedicated to me by my sister, Ruby Hall Wells, in early recovery. So this is what she sent me that I want to send to you, whoever will receive it and whoever it is meant for. Listen. Whew, thank you, Jesus. Here it is. For Helen Baylor, give a big hand. Lifting up the name of Jesus. Well, I'm lifting up the name of Jesus. Jesus came into my life one day. I always knew in my heart that he was the way. Muhammad didn't have it, Buddha couldn't do it, no. I got joy in my heart. I want the whole world to know that I am lifting up the name of Jesus. Yes, I am. I'm lifting up the name of Jesus. Ooh, oh, wasting time looking for an easy thrill, looking for peace in every kind of pill. Marijuana didn't have it, cocaine can't do it, no. I got peace on my mind. I want the whole world to know that he saved me, delivered me. Don't you know my God has set me free? He'll never leave. No forsake you. He's gonna be right there, whatever you're going through. Cause he's the Alpha, Omega, my master and my savior. You ought to try my Jesus. He can do it. Oh, yes, he can. Glory. Yes, he can. Well, this was me. I'm set free now, but this was me. I was feeling sorry for myself and dwelling on my past, looking in the mirror, wondering, will your beauty last? But you're running out of time, trying to find real happiness. If you really want to live in Him, you must confess. I am here. Yeah, Jesus. Glory, glory. I'm lifting up the name of Jesus. Well, so you think, been thinking that you're all alone and Satan's telling you give up. Feel like all hope is gone with that devil fire. This is what I have to say. Give your heart to Jesus. Jesus is the only way. He saved me, delivered me. Don't you know my God has set me free? He'll never leave, nor forsake you. He'll be right there whenever you're going through. Cause He, Alpha, Omega, my master and my savior. Try Jesus. He can do it. Oh, yeah. I know He can. Lift them up this morning. Lift your God up this morning. Woo! He can do it. Nobody else can. Deliver you, set you free. Woo! Thank you, Lord. Woo! Thank you, Ruby. Thank you, Ruby. Thank you, Ruby. All right. Woo! To God be the glory. In order for me to be of service to him, I have to share my testimony with you to help you see that if he did it for me, he can do it for you. Welcome to January the 9th, daily reflection reading from Alcoholics Anonymous. And today's topic for the daily reflection, an act of providence. With a Weena B's perspective. No, I do not represent Alcoholics Anonymous, but I've been a proud, faithful, humble, and grateful member for over 31 plus years, and it is God's choice to let me live to February the 23rd of 2022. We will be celebrating 32 years free from active addiction, mental illness, the lifestyle, prostitution, all of that goes together. And more importantly, he helped me through the 12-step spiritual program to find out what happened to me and not what's wrong with me. Whoa, that is such a freedom. So these daily reflections give us this day our daily bread, right? Helps people in recovery like me to hone in on today's activities, today's blessings, today's challenges, circumstances, situations. Give us this day. And through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, we who are in recovery, recovery ongoing, yes, one day at a time, need to be reminded of where we came from, where we were delivered from, how to utilize the spiritual tools at our hand to deal with today and prepare us for a more purposeful and happy future. Yeah. So yesterday we talked about, do I have a choice? So if you need to go back to my broadcast from December the 30th up until now, please do that because it focuses on the daily reflection for that day. So without further ado, let's get started with January the 9th, AA daily reflection reading, an act of providence. First, from the AA Alcoholics Anonymous Big Book, quote from a particular part of the literature, followed by a AA recovering alcoholic perspective, and then I will interject mine, but most importantly, and just as important, we want you to marinate, listen, internalize to get your perspective of what this daily reflection is trying to convey to us. If you're not an alcoholic, guess what? You are addicted to something. And you and I can use these spiritual principles in all our affairs, no matter what we are addicted to. So don't get it twisted, okay? I'm the alcoholic. Maybe you're not. But maybe you're addicted to work, to sex, to fun, to partying. I don't know. But if it has caused your life to be unmanageable and you find that you are powerless over it and that thing or situation or substance is controlling you, then you too can benefit from these daily reflections. All right, so I want you to first, if you don't mind, I want you to close your eyes and I want you to listen first, okay? And then I'm going to allow us to read it together. But close your eyes. Close your eyes right now. Take a deep breath and listen to these words. January the 9th, an act of providence. It is truly awful to admit that, glass in hand, we have warped our minds into such an obsession for destructive drinking that only an act of providence can remove it from us. This is from the 1212 book, page 21. And the writer states, my act of providence a manifestation of divine care and direction, came as I experienced the total bankruptcy of active alcoholism. Everything meaningful in my life was gone. I telephoned Alcoholics Anonymous, and from that instant, my life has never been the same. When I reflect on that very special moment, I know that God was working in my life long before I was able to acknowledge and accept spiritual concepts. The glass was put down through this act of providence, and my journey into sobriety began. My life continues to unfold with divine care and direction. Step one, in which I admitted I was powerless over alcohol, that my life had become unmanageable, takes on more meaning for me one day at a time in the life saving, life giving fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. Oh my God. Did open your eyes now, huh? Whether you open them or close them, I don't know. But I wanted you to first listen, hear what those words were trying to convey from an alcoholic's perspective. And if you are an alcoholic and you know what we are saying here, and if you have somebody who's an alcoholic in your family, here you can read and sense the turmoil that alcoholism brings about in one's life, one's family, one's spirituality. Yes, and so having these daily reflections remind us, those who are in recovery and those who want to learn about recovery, how to hone in on how to stay sober, sane, one day at a time, using these spiritual principles. So let's read it together, okay? All right. It says, January the 9th, an act of providence. It is truly awful to admit that, glass in hand, we have warped our minds into such an obsession for destructive drinking that only an act of providence can remove it from us. This is from the 1212, page 21. And the writer writes, my act of providence, a manifestation of divine care and direction, came as I experienced the total bankruptcy of active alcoholism. Everything meaningful in my life was gone. I telephoned Alcoholics Anonymous, and from that instant, my life has never been the same. When I reflect on that very special moment, I know that God was working in my life long before I was able to acknowledge and accept spiritual concepts. The glass was put down through this one act of providence, and my journey into sobriety began. My life continues to unfold with divine care and direction. Step one, in which I admitted I was powerless over alcohol, that my life had become unmanageable, takes on more meaning for me one day at a time in the life saving, life giving fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. Huh? Woo! I tell you, when I uh, read that, and as I embrace the transformation, as I embrace the empathy and the compassion of that reading, particularly from that alcoholic who wrote those words, I get in touch with my own acknowledgement of an act of providence. They say in our fellowship and how it works that no human power could have relieved our alcoholism, that God could and would if he was sought. As human beings, we are limited. Our hearts may be in it to help someone, to help save ourselves, but we don't have that power. God can use us, but we don't have the power that it takes to remove those adversities out of one's spirit and replace it with the spirituality that God has given us. So no human power could have relieved my alcoholism. But underneath that parked car 31 years ago in the streets of Philadelphia, yes, I sought God, the God that I did not know. And I asked him to take me out this life now or show me a better way. And that act of providence was granted to me. No human power could have relieved my alcoholism that God could and would if he was sought. I give homage to my mother, Helen Jones Lamar Hall Taylor. From a mother's perspective, the one that God used to carry me in her body to deliver me out of that canal into the manifestation of this life journey. I give homage to the God that selected my mother for me to come through. And with all the motherly love that she had, not for only me, but for all her children, she yet was powerless. She tried certain things and she prayed relentlessly, and God did answer her prayers, but not in her time, but in God's time. But there were times when my mother felt as though she had the power. I remember my mom coming to one of the houses that I had rented, and I remember that I was supposed to be having a birthday party for my child downstairs in that house. And I was stuck upstairs in my bedroom. I was stuck from getting high all day, all night, smoking that crack. I was stuck. And if anybody know about being stuck, I was stuck. That drug just paralyzed me. That drink just paralyzed me. I was stuck. And I heard my mother say, "Where's Edwina?" And as I heard her come up the steps, I couldn't let her see me that way. I didn't even want her to know I was there. So guess what, y'all? I opened the closet door where I had a bunch of clothes laying on the floor, and I put myself underneath those clothes on the floor in that closet. And as my mother came into the room, she went to the window and she saw on the window sills the pipe, the liquor, the crack, right? And she just looked up and said, "Oh my God." And I'm on the floor underneath that parked car, peeping at my mom. And every part of me wanted to cry out, say, "Mama, I'm here, Mama." But I couldn't do it. It wouldn't let me do it. It wouldn't let me cry out to my mother. It wouldn't let me do it. It had me gripped. And all I could do was just peep out and see how I don't know how my mother felt, but the way she looked, she just shook her head and looked up and said, "Oh my God." There was another time with my mother on 22nd Street where we were raised. She came there and she said that we need to lay on this couch. And I laid on the couch. And she went to praying, and she went to asking God to remove the demons out of me, like she was a witch doctor or something, conducting a voodoo thing, like get it out of her, get it out of her. And I'm looking up her like that. Well, will you hurry up so I can go get high again? But my mother was trying very hard to pull that thing up out of her child, but she didn't have the power. She didn't have the power, but her heart and her intentions were good. Yes. And as much as she prayed, God heard her prayers, but God did not give her the power to do it because she didn't have the power. But she planted the seed. Huh? There were times when I knew my mother was at church. I knew my mother was at church every Sunday. And there were a couple of times, and this one time in particular at 12th and Lehigh. That night I had been raped. I had jumped off of a roof, climbing out the window of my children's father's house. Because I broke in, climbed up the roof, climbed in the window. I just wanted to go to sleep because I was tired. I had been raped, and I just wanted to go to sleep. But they came back too soon, and I couldn't let my children and their father see me. And so I climbed back out that bathroom window. And when I was trying to get down off the roof, I fell. And I got up and I drove to my mother's church at 12th and Lehigh, bloodied up, banged up, and all that kind of stuff, right? And I remember going to the church door, and one of the gentlemen came to the door and said, "You can't come in looking like that." I said, "But my mom's in there. My mom's in there." No, you can't come in here looking like that. What is your mom's name? I'll go get her. What's your mom's name? I said, "But my mom is in there. I need my mommy." He said, "Sit on the steps. Sit on the steps." And I sat on the steps. But when I sat on the steps, I said, I can't do this. I can't do this. So I left. And I don't know, and I'm sure my mother came out looking for me. There was another time when I went to a church that she was at, and this time I did something different. When the guy walked away from the door, I snuck in. And I sat next to my mother, and she didn't look to the side to see who sat next to her. And as I sat there, I saw people looking and all that, but my mother never turned her head to see who was sitting next to her. And I remember dropping the bulletin, and my mom picked it up to pass it to the next person who dropped it, and it was me. And she looked at me, and she grabbed me, and she took me to the altar, and she said, "Lord, please pray for my child. Please pray for my child." Yes. But even with them prayers, they still did not have the power to relieve that demon that was in me. No human power could have relieved that, but God could and would if he was sought. And my mom sought him from a different angle, but I had to be the one to participate. God said, "I know when my child is ready. Edwina is not ready right now. She needs to get a few more bumps and bruises," unknowingly to me. But my mother planted the seed. She did what limited power she had, right? And so I wanted to say that those who are dealing with people with addictions, It may be yourself, it may be others, family members, loved ones, friends, co-workers. It doesn't matter. Yes, pray for them, right? Because you don't have the power. And see, people like you and people like my mom, they thought they was helping, but they were enabling. They were enabling us. They thought they had the power by letting us in. They thought they had the power by feeding us and giving us money. They were enabling us. They didn't know, but we knew. We knew we just needed somewhere to sleep. Just let me in. Just give me some place to lay down. So at that moment, yeah, we were desperate. But guess what? That disease said, now you're in. And it took over. And then we start stealing. We start manipulating. We start hiding. We start, yes. So by them giving us money and letting us in and feeding us, they became codependent. They became enablers. And that's why we have a 12-step program for the ones who love those who are in addiction. Because guess what? They have a problem too, and it's called codependency, and it's called enabling. And they have a 12-step program for them too, because God can give them an act of providence too, so that they will now learn through God. Once they call him in and recognize they don't have the power, but they need to call on the power to help them, to help us in his way, not their way, because their way never worked. It just prolonged the process. So when it says here, I tell you, Lord, thank you so much. Thank you so much. It says, once we put down that drink, yes, and see, with me, that's when that night that I had got taken home by the cops, right? I told y'all my last day of getting high was on February the 22nd of 1990, and I was getting high with my stepson, who was the same age. His father was a John who engaged with me as a prostitute, but then God used him to marry me. He thinking he had the power, but God had other plans. And so when I was getting high with his son, yes, he was another person that had the drugs, that had the money, and happened to have my car, because his dad didn't think that he was getting high, that his son was a goody two-shoe type of person. But unbeknownst to him, every time his dad went to work, he would come and get me, and we would get high. We would do sexual things with each other. But guess what? After the transformation took place, on this particular night, he wanted to do harm to me. Yes. And so it was that early morning, 3 o'clock, that I ran for my life, getting away from him. And I put myself underneath that parked car, and my life flashed before me. Yes. And through that humiliating experience, I cried out, whoever they say you are, take me out this life now, or show me a better way. And so that was the last time that I got high. But listen to what the writer says, right? It says here, my act of providence, unbeknownst to me, right, came as I experienced a total bankruptcy of active alcoholism. Everything meaningful in my life was gone. And that was me being underneath that parked car. It says I telephoned Alcoholics Anonymous, and from that instance, my life has never been the same. So let me tell you what happened to me. Yes, when the cops came and they tried to talk me into coming
from beneath the car, and my stepson was trying to tell him what happened, and I was just like, I'm tired, I'm tired, I'm tired, I'm tired, I'm tired, I'm so tired. And the cop said, come on, ma'am, I'll take you home. And take me home, take me home, take me home. Ooh, he took me home. And guess who was waiting at the front door? His father, my husband. And I'm telling you, when I walked into that house, that apartment, and I sat on that couch, and he came out the room and he looked at me with such disgust. And he said, Edwina, what are you going to do now? And I'm telling you, the act of Providence took over, because he did not take me out this life. He put me on the road to a recovery that I didn't know. And when my husband said, what are you going to do now? I heard the word you. Edwina, what are you going to do now about your life? What are you going to do? I heard the word you. I couldn't do it for him. I couldn't do it for my mother. I couldn't do it for my children. I couldn't even do it for myself. Yes, but I heard the word you. And like this gentleman, I got up and I called the AA hotline down at Presbyterian Hospital. And when the lady asked on the phone, what can I do for you? I said, ma'am, I know I need help, but I want help. You heard me? I know I need help, ma'am, but I want help. And my life hasn't been the same since. An act of Providence, right? And so the lady said, well, ma'am, we do have a bed opening. How soon can you get here? I said, I'm on my way. Even if I have to walk. I was in Glenside, Pennsylvania, but I was willing to walk to West Philly. But my husband said, no, Edwina, I'll take you. And when he took me this time, like most people who are trying to help us in their minds and in their demeanor, here we go again. I hope you're doing, that's it. But I refuse to look at him, because if I looked at him with that look again, I probably would have changed my mind, because that act of Providence said, don't look back. Go through those doors and don't look back. And I didn't look back, and I went through those doors at Presbyterian Hospital. And so when it says, from that instance, my life has never been the same. So when I reflect on that very special moment, I know that God was working in my life long before I was able to acknowledge and accept spiritual concepts. Yes, He goes on to say the glass was put down through this act of Providence, and my journey into sobriety began. I didn't know what recovery was about. I had been in rehabs before, but the student was not ready. Although the teachers were there, I was not ready. But God knew when each and every one is ready. God knows when we will have our knee-bowing experience, and we will confess that He is. He is the only one that has the power to relieve us of any and all things. Yes. And so as I began this journey of recovery into sobriety, I became a student. I put my hands up. Listen, wherever you tell me to go, I'm going to go. Whatever you tell me to do, I'm going to do. I even had to pray for God to remove the taste from me. I had to ask God to remove all reservations from me. I know what I needed to pray for because I know how it got me the last time. Yes. Huh? So I know that this journey of mine began at that special moment. And so let me say these last couple of minutes, he says here, my life continues to unfold with divine care and directions. Do you think that I will be sitting here before you talking about all those things? That's why God made me transparent. He said I could use that Weena and her cuckoo for Cocoa Pops up because I know she will be transparent. And he better believe that I am and will continue to be. Yes, because my life continues to unfold with divine direction, which is why I'm sitting in front of you this moment, sharing my experience, my strength, and my hope, and the avenue to spiritual concepts, spiritual principles by attending this 12-step spiritual program. Yes, so let me end by going through the last word. It says, step 1, in which I admitted I was powerless over alcohol, that my life had become unmanageable, takes on more meaning for me one day at a time in a life-saving and life-giving fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. Woo! I tell you, at the age of 34, underneath that parked car, was the end of that old life. But it was the beginning of a new life for me through the 12-step program, spiritual fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. So 31 plus years later, I still make my meetings every day. I still get involved with service work. I still read the daily reflections every day. And God said it's time for you to share it with the world. Yes. Share what it offers. Share somebody else's experience in it. Weena, share from your perspective. And that's what I do. So, happy Sunday, January the 9th. Life is going to deal you a hand today from the deck. And if you're like me, we know who the dealer is. But one thing I do want to encourage you to do is to wear a mask, get vaccinated, get your children vaccinated, get a booster shot, social distancing. Yes. Because I want to continue to sit before you as the bottom reads 9 members of my family had COVID-19 back in December of 2020. And guess what? A couple of them have it right now. So be safe. Act of Providence can help save your life and the lives of others. So ask for help and then utilize it. Till we meet again, be safe, and be safe. Whew. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord.